Hello, hello, hello. If you could tell me if you can hear me, that would be great in the chat. Perfect. Thank you. So sorry we're a little bit late. My previous class just finished, but let's get started. So today we are going to talk about these commonly confused words. Come, go, bring, take, paint, draw, all these ones that Russian speakers or foreigners have confusion about. They don't know when to say which. Our goal for today is to understand a little bit better how to use each one, what situations, what different phrases we might use with them. If you have any questions, feel free to write it in the chat and I'll try to answer. There also is a test at the end if you would like to check your knowledge. It has everything that we'll go over today. You just choose the correct answer and put in to complete the sentence. So let's begin. Oh, my name's Kyle, by the way, for those of you who don't know me. And I'm American, so if I don't sound British, that's why. I'm not. I'm American. So come or go, bring or take. The reason I put these together is that they both pairs of words, if you look on the left and if you look on the right. Just write to me real quick if you can see the slides, just to make sure that everyone can see the slides. So if you look, you will see that they're in pairs. Come and bring and go and take. Okay? So come always refers to moving towards the speaker. Bring is the same idea. Grabbing something, pulling it towards the speaker. Okay? Whereas go is away from the speaker. Take is picking something up and moving it in the opposite direction, so away from the speaker, okay? So the main idea is not what you're doing, but where it is happening in relation to the speaker, towards the speaker or away from the speaker, okay? So let's look here. We have a common situation. Someone is far away, and I want them to be near me. So what do I say? I say, come here. Okay? We can also use this even if it's not exactly here. Okay? I might ask someone, when are you coming to Russia? I'm in Russia. They're moving in the direction towards me. Okay, so we can use this with here, we can use this with anything towards me or towards the speaker. Now the opposite of this is go. Okay, so we have come here and go away. Now this doesn't have to be actually away from the speaker, but it's not going to be towards. So I might say go here, go here, go here. Whereas none of them actually are towards or away from anything. If I tell you directions around the city, first go to the Hermitage, then go to the Admiralty building, then go da-da-da-da-da. There, it doesn't really matter unless I'm specifically telling you to come to me, right? Then we'll say go, 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 okay? So remember, come is always going to be towards the speaker. Go will be just about anything else, okay? So now we have the same idea, bring, okay? Bring. Bring something to me. Bring it here. Okay? So it's the same idea as come, except you're carrying something. Okay? Now, I wouldn't say bring it away. I would say bring it here. If I want to have an object move further away from me, so here the object is coming closer. If I want it to move further, I will say take it away. Okay? So we already know some phrases that we've heard many times that might help us with these. We already know come here. We already know go away. And we already know take away or take out food, right? Take away or take out food is when you order food or you buy food and you do not eat it where they made it. So you're taking it away from the restaurant or you're taking it away from the store. Okay? Some places, often, or not often, but sometimes some places will even allow you to bring your own food to the movie theater or to the restaurant or to the cafe. We even have an acronym, a phrase in English. If you see on an invitation to a party, it will say, come at this time, and it will say, or sometimes will say, B-Y-O-B. I'll type that for you, B-Y-O-B. The idea for this is bring your own beer or beverage or whatever, depending on whether you drink or not. But the main idea behind this is you're coming to a party and you should bring a drink or snacks or whatever. You'll hear BYO, and then if they don't want it to be beer or beverage, they might say BYO drinks, BYO snacks. Bring your own. So there we have another one. Okay? Now, on to paint or draw. The biggest difference between these two is not what we're doing, but how we're doing it. Both of these are the idea of creating an image. With paint, we have some kind of liquid. Okay? We have water. We have paint, we have acrylics, we have oils, we have anything that if I turn the container, if I turn it to the side, it'll go, okay? With draw, it's usually something that I can do whatever I want with. I can wave it around, I can throw it, and it's not going to make much of a mark. Okay? So we usually think of these things as hard. Okay? The other thing is we usually have a difference between tools. So with paint, we can use our hands or our fingers, like what children do when they're very young. We can use a brush, like what famous artists often use. If you go to tourist areas, you will often see people painting. Or we can even use sponges or rollers. We can use, sometimes people even use shoes where you walk through paint, and that's how you transfer it. But the idea behind paint is that it's usually messier because you put a lot of liquid and then it has to dry. With drawing, it can be pencil, which is graphite or lead. It can be charcoal, the hard black things. It can also be ink. So we can use ink both with painting and with drawing. But here, the actual item and the actual way the ink is transferred is harder. It makes distinct lines. You don't have to constantly dip more and more, all that kind of stuff. So let's look at what we use these with. If you look on the left, all of these are quite messy, or can be, right? But they're the easiest things to do because you don't need any specific tool if you don't want to. All I need is something liquid that has color and something to move that color around. That's why we have spray paint. We have paint brushes that we see there. We have a paint roller that we see there. We have finger painting. And because it's not so specific, and you can see in the picture with the child, you can just put a big thing of paint and then move it from there. That's why even animals can paint. Drawing, however, there's a specific point, right? You often have to sharpen or you have to use a specific part. And if I were to make a mark and then try to spread it, try to use my hand on it, it wouldn't work very well. Okay, so drawing, we use pens, markers, pencils, charcoal, things like that. Usually they make a line, and you can make the line kind of a little different, but you're not going to be able to put a circle and then spread more from there. So paint on boards, we don't do. Paints, we need some kind of liquid. On boards like this, we draw. On walls, you can draw or paint, and it depends on what you use to do it, okay? So the main thing is, what are we using? What are we using as a tool? And what are we using as the actual thing that is changing color? Now, the very difficult one, because it's not only vocabulary, it's also grammar. Say, speak, talk, or tell. Now we're going to start here with the right side of the slide. We have speak and talk. There is a very small difference between speak and talk. The first difference is that talk is less formal than speak. If I say, I was speaking with my friends the other weekend, sounds a bit strange, but if I say I was talking to my friends, totally fine, no problem. Okay? Again, the difference is mostly style. But we also have another thing. We don't talk languages. We speak languages, okay? And when we learn as children, we often learn to speak. We can learn to talk, but usually we'll talk about the ability of speaking, okay? And another thing to remember with languages, we don't use the word language. We say, I speak Spanish. I speak Russian. I speak Gaelic. I speak Turkish. We don't say, I speak Spanish language. I speak Turkish language. The only time you will hear Spanish language or English language is when we're trying to be clear that it's a difference between Spanish language, Spanish culture, Spanish literature, Spanish cuisine. Okay, so when you say I speak, you're not going to speak Spanish literature. That would be very strange. You're going to speak Spanish because you can't speak Spanish literature, you can't speak Spanish cuisine, you speak only languages, okay? So, speak and talk, both are focusing on the process, okay? What am I doing right now? I am speaking, I am talking. I want to talk to you, I want to speak with you. All these different things where I want to have a conversation. I want to make sounds from my mouth that somehow get a message to a listener. Say and tell have the same idea, where they're about producing sound that somehow results in language that is understood by other people. But it works a little bit differently, okay? Because they focus on different grammar. They focus on different aspects of the interaction, okay? So say, we focus on the message, right? So this is why we use it with say something, say anything, say nothing. What did he say? I said this. We use it in reported speech. We use it all the time for just regular conversations. If you go to a book in English, you'll often see he said, 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 she said, they said, because it's focusing on the message. Okay? The focus is on what was said, what idea or message was produced by a speaker. Okay? Tell, however, focuses on the recipient. Okay? So, I told you. I told him. We must have an object with tell. With say, I don't need it. I can say, I said yes. I said no. With tell, we must have an object. I told you. I told him. I told her. Okay, we can also have other objects other than people, like I told a joke or I told a story, but those are exceptions usually, right? So we have some specific collocations, pairings that we use with our different verbs here. Speak, we use with language. Talk, we're using informally to talk about the process. Tell, we can use with, again, joke or story, but we often need a recipient. And say, it's focusing on the message where we don't care as much, okay? So, let's look at our example. I saw you talking to a foreigner, but I didn't understand what you said. Okay? Here, we're talking about the process, right? We're talking about the action. I saw you talking to a foreigner. We could also say I saw you speaking to a foreigner. That would be totally fine also. But we don't need it. It's less formal here, this situation. Okay? So we can say talk here. A little bit more natural than speaking, okay? But I saw this action, I saw this process, okay? And we see, but I didn't understand what you said. So when there's talking involved, I may or may not know or care what is said. So teachers don't like talking in class. Unless they're a language teacher, then they like when their students talk. We don't need to know what was said because it's about the process, okay? I couldn't say I saw you telling a foreigner because I don't know what they told. I don't know enough information, okay? And again, I don't know what you said. There's the message there that we don't have, so we can't say what you said. Okay? Now, we have our response. That's because we were speaking Spanish. I was telling him how to get to the metro. So, in the second text, we can't switch to talking. That's because we were speaking Spanish, not talking Spanish. You don't talk Spanish. You speak Spanish. And I was telling him how to find the metro. Now, in this one, we could change it if we wanted to I was saying, but then we need to him how to find the metro. Or without him at all. I was saying how to find the metro. Okay? So remember, with say or tell, we need to focus on what is being said. With tell, we must have an object, right? I told you how to do this. I told you when to get up. I told you to do this. I said to do this. I said how. I said. Both of these, say and tell, are focusing on a message, but telling is focusing on the message and the recipient. We need that recipient in there. We need who is listening, okay? So it's very hard to tell someone something if they're not listening, okay? I can tell them, but if they're not listening, I'm not doing a very good job. I'm more just talking in their direction, okay? So remember, say and tell, we need to focus on the message, and with tell, we need an object, who. Talk and speak, we need to focus on just the action, okay? So in these texts, in this dialogue, I can't take speak and put it where tell is. I can't take talk and put it where said is. It wouldn't work because the idea is different. The grammar is a little bit different, okay? So, now to another difficult one, very common amongst my students and foreigners in general. Okay, very common because you learn these words early in specific collocations. You learn watch a movie, you hear look at a picture, you see things, okay? But then you start to learn more of the language and you start to get them confused because you never learned the rules. So let's talk about these rules. Let's start with watch. Watch always is some kind of process or movement, okay? If the thing is not moving or we're not expecting it to move, then we're not going to say watch. Okay, so here we have the example of a game, a match, a film. I could watch people. If I go to a park, I can watch the trees blowing in the wind. If they're moving, if the trees are just standing there, I'm not watching them. Okay, so watch always needs some kind of movement or expecting movement or process. Okay, now, if it's not moving, then I'm looking at something, okay? So, to point your eyes at something, that means to take my eyes and point them in that direction. Right now, I'm looking into the camera. I'm looking at the window, okay? The preposition at can change depending on what we're doing, right? I can look out of a window, I can look into a camera or into someone's soul. But if I'm just pointing my eyeballs, we're going to say look at something. Okay? So for here, we have things like pictures, paintings, landscapes, drawings, anything that's not expected to move or expected to change in any way. Then the last one, see. This is where you look at something, you point your eyes, and your brain actually does something with that information. Okay? Now this one is what we call a stative verb. Okay? We cannot use it in the continuous. Okay? We cannot say I am seeing. That will change the meaning, okay? But we do use this for the ability, right? If I go blind, or if I cover my eyes, I can't see. I have no ability. I also can't watch, I can't look at anything, but that's because my eyes can't see anything. So see is about the ability also. Okay, and the other thing is that we need to process it mentally. Okay, so when I look at a painting, I might not see the difference or see the quality. And I will never watch a painting unless it's moving and I'm in a Scooby-Doo episode. Okay, so let's look at our next example. Here's a good example because it's about magic. We can use all three here. Look at that magician. Okay, we will often use look as a command also. I could say watch here, watch that magician, but look at usually is, shorter. Okay? Watch how he makes the ball disappear with his hands. I want you to watch this process. First, I wanted you to look at the magician so you knew where to point your eyes. Now, I'm telling you what to watch, what I want you to look at for a whole process, beginning, middle, and end. Okay? So look at the magician, point your eyes there. Now watch. Again, I could say watch that magician if I wanted to shorten my speech a little bit, but we often say look as the command, okay? Unless I've already established where to point your eyes, because it's a bit silly to say watch and you don't know where I'm talking about. You're like, what am I watching? So usually we'll say, look here, look at this, now watch, okay? Now, the second person in the dialogue, I was watching, but I didn't see his hand move the ball into his pocket. Again, here, my brain didn't process it. I was watching. I saw hands. I saw ball. And then poof, I don't see a ball. I was watching the whole process, the whole trick. I was there. My eyes were pointing at it. It was a movement, so I was watching it. But he did it so well, so amazingly, so wonderfully, so secretively that I didn't see the trick. I didn't see him put the ball into his pocket. Okay, so another good way to think about these are with optical illusions. You know, those pictures where some people look at the picture and see a duck, whereas other people look at a picture and see a rabbit or something like that. Okay, we don't watch those, but some of them we can if they move. But again, two people can look at one thing and see two different things, or see nothing at all, right? How often have you been somewhere with someone who has bad eyes, and you say, look at that, and you're like, I don't see it. What? Look at what? Okay, now, we talked about movies. So what do we use with movies? You should, if you were paying attention, say watch. And this, there we go, is where I tell you sometimes. We don't look at movies ever, unless we're looking at the poster or looking at the box, right? And that's not looking at the movie, that's looking at the box or the poster. Now with watch, this is about the time we spend. It's focusing on the process. What are you doing? I'm watching a movie. Okay, I know what you're doing. You're sitting down, pointing your eyes at the television, things are happening, you're being entertained, you're following the story. Now when we say see, we can focus on one of two things. We can focus on, one, the experience. So I will ask you, not have you watched Lord of the Rings, have you watched The Hobbit? I will say, have you seen? Because here, I don't care about the process. What were you doing yesterday as you were watching the film? You didn't watch it correctly. I don't care about the process. I care about the yes or no, okay? I didn't see it. I haven't seen it. I never want to see it, okay? Or we can also use it when we talk about going to see a film in the cinema. So I want to see the Joker film. So I go see it. So here we have a conversation, another dialogue. Have you seen the new Tarantino film? General experience. No, but I'll probably watch it when it comes out on DVD. Okay, here I'm focusing on the process, okay? I will watch it later. I promise I'll watch it when I have time, okay? So we often use see with experience, with questions, with yes or no. We use watch with promises, with talking about the past at the specific moment. What did you do yesterday? I watched Gone with the Wind. It's an old film. I could go see it if it's in the cinemas again, but if I'm just at home, I'm watching it. But then I might tell you I have never seen it, but I want to watch it tomorrow. So again, it can be a little bit difficult because the idea is about experience or just the process, okay? So now another common one, in or on time. These two can be very complicated because we can have situations where we're in time and on time. We're both in and on. We can have situations where we're not in time and not on time, which is probably the most common. Or we can have situations where we're in time but not on time. That is also reasonably common, and we can even have the opposite. On time but not in time. So what's the difference? In time, we're talking about there was an end point to an opportunity, to an event, and I arrived before that, okay? So I arrived before the store closed, before the building burnt down, before the train left the station. I'm in time. On time is about a schedule, okay? So if I'm on time, it means I am according to the schedule, I am following it, okay? So let's talk about how these can be a little bit different. The train leaves at 10:15. Let's meet at the station at 10 o'clock. Okay? There we don't have any in or on time. Let's move to the next day. So the day they're supposed to meet at the train station. They're supposed to be there at 10. The train leaves at 10:15. Situation A, the eyebrows are off on that, but that's okay. You're late. I said to come at 10. So according to the schedule or the plan that they made of coming at 10, it's now 10:05, he's late. I'm not on time. They're in time for the train. The train hasn't left yet. But the second guy is not on time because he's not there at 10 o'clock. He's there at 10:05. He is late, but not too late for the train. Now here, this one, as you can see, there's no train. He's too late. It's 10:20. The train left. You're late, I said to come at 10 o'clock. If you were on time, we would have boarded the train in time before it left. Okay? So here he was not on time, and here he was not in time. Now, the man on the left, the one who is angry, he was on time, but he didn't get on the train in time because he was waiting for his friend. So he was on time, but he wasn't in time because he was waiting for his friend. And then the other man says, I am a sad man with a poor sense of time. Okay? So on time and in time. On time, schedule. In time, opportunity. Okay? So we will never say in time for class unless class is over. Or if your professor or teacher does not allow you into the classroom after a certain time. My students come whenever they want, which is sometimes not so good, but as long as they're in time before the half point in the lesson, It's fine if they're not on time because everyone's busy. So I'm much more worried about in time than on time when it comes to students coming to class. Again, hopefully everyone's on time and in time, but not that big of a deal since everyone works, okay? Now, in, at, or to. When we talk about cities, places, hospitals, things like that, in, at, or to, okay, as general prepositions. Okay? Within, it's a preposition of place. Okay? So there's not movement. We use it often with the verb to be, or located, or live. It's not going to be something that involves movement, unless the movement is entirely within the city or entirely within the country, and even then it's a bit strange. I could say I am walking in my room if I'm not leaving the room, but usually we'll say walking around my room. So in, we use with city, country, specific rooms, focusing on not outside, not near, but in, okay? At. This is another preposition of place. We don't use it to talk about movement. We use it to talk about where things are, where things were, things like that, okay? Location. Here, it's a bit more of a general location. We use it for places. At the hospital, at school, at the office, at the airport. If we say in, it's more specific and it often works, but it means you're literally inside the building, as opposed to who really cares? I'm at the Hermitage. Doesn't matter what room or what building I'm in. It just matters the idea that I'm at the Hermitage or at the airport. Okay? To. This is a preposition of direction. Therefore, we're moving. Okay? We can use it with any group or any type of place or noun as long as it's moving in that direction. Okay? So I'm driving to the airport. I'm driving to Moscow. I'm flying to the city. I'm moving to the bedroom. Okay? Any one of these places. We used all of those with other prepositions before, but now it's about movement. So let's look at some examples here. Where are you? I'm at the airport. I'm going to Spain. I'm waiting at the gate right now, but my wife is in the toilet. A strange conversation, a little bit maybe even uncomfortable, but the idea still works. Okay? At the airport, general idea. I don't have to say I'm in the airport because you don't care whether I'm standing inside, outside smoking, or in the terminal. You don't care where I am. You care that I'm flying. I'm going to Spain. Direction. I'm waiting at the gate. Again, general idea. I'm not inside a gate. I'm at the gate. Okay? We use at often with things that aren't actual boxes or rooms, right? If it doesn't have four walls, we're less likely to use in with it. Then we get to the toilet. My wife is in the toilet because it's a closed room. It's a specific room. Really, I'm in Spain too. I'm at El Prado right now. I'm in the El Greco room. Here, in Spain, country. We could even say in Madrid, at El Prado, at a museum, and in which room. Okay? Now, this is, again, a subtle difference that we can do. We can say which museum we are at, and then what room it's in. Okay? Or we might For example, if we talk about famous works of art, we will often say they're in a specific museum. Why? Because I want you to know that it's not outside or in the courtyard, it's in the museum. So the Mona Lisa is in the Louvre and places like that. So we will often use in if we're talking about where specific works are or something like that, because then you know, oh, it's inside, okay? But you will still say, or you can say at if you want to say, you know, I'm going to see the Mona Lisa at or in the Louvre. There, it's not as big of a deal. It's up to you to decide. Now, this last one, I've never been to El Prado, but I really hope I can go there. Been to. Notice here we have a strange thing, okay? When we talk about experience and we talk about places, we will say to. Okay? Not, I've never gone to El Prado. We can say that, but more often we're going to say, I've never even been there. And we definitely will not say, I've never been in El Prado, because that sounds like I was at El Prado, but I didn't go inside. For example, I've been to the Hermitage means I went and visited it. I've been near the Hermitage, or I've been at the Hermitage. Again, okay, but you didn't go inside? Why? It's a lovely museum. Okay. And now our last one, if that wants to change. Okay. Grow up. Oops, sorry, no rise. Or raise. Okay. Grow means to increase in size or age. This can be plants, animals, numbers, countries, anything that can change its size, okay, over time. Okay? Grow up means to go from child to adult. Okay? Grow up will never have an object, because you don't help anything. There's no way to help someone grow up. I can't grow up my brother. He does it or he doesn't. It's up to him. Maybe not up to him, but it's his action. Whereas grow, we can use with or without an object. If I grow tomatoes, it means they become bigger when I'm around them. But we won't use it with things like animals and people, okay? Because they don't just grow, they become mature. We help them become mature, and so they grow up. We raise them, okay? So to raise always needs an object, and it has two meanings, okay? To move something upwards, like raise your hand, raise the volume, raise a glass or a mug, or it can be to help someone grow up. So your parents raised you. You grew up, but they helped you, so they raised you. Okay? Again, whether you became mature or not, they can't really change. So they don't grow you up. Okay? And they don't grow you either, because you're not a plant. Okay, so let's look at some examples. When you work and move towards achieving your goal, you intellectually grow. So obviously I did not make this, but this is a good example of these two meanings. You can see getting bigger, getting bigger, getting bigger. Plant and person, both things grow. Okay? Now, in this case, neither thing grew up. Why? Because plants don't really become mature in that way. We don't talk about growing up plants, because, yes, they can become mature where they start having fruits or berries or whatever, but we don't use it. We don't use grow up with plants. We use it with people. Okay? And here, the man doesn't grow up, right? Because he's not a child. He's a man. He just becomes a more intellectual man, a bigger man if we look at the picture literally. So again, we can use grow for our whole lives. Okay? Growing as a person, growing in intellect, growing as a human being, growing as a learner. It can go on forever because we can always get more and more and more. Okay? But then when we get to grow up, it's just to become mature. Okay? So, now we're talking about children and parents. Wow, your son is growing so much. You're doing a great job raising him. Yep, he's growing up too fast. Okay, so here we have all three. And in the first one, your son is growing so much, meaning he's getting taller. He's getting bigger. He's getting, he's increasing in size, or increasing in intelligence, or increasing in something, okay? If we just say they're growing, usually we think size, okay? Could be anything though, okay? You're doing a great job raising him, because that's a parent, and they are doing something to help, okay? Again, raising is a process that's going on for a long time. It's when your parents help you or give you food or whatever. Whereas growing up, or not whereas, but growing up is also a process, but it's something that you do, okay? Or you did if you're an adult, right? So he's grown up. That's where we get the noun grown up, right? Adult. Okay, so once you're adult, you're not grown up, but you can grow up. Okay, and actually, that brings us to our final little fun phrase for today, is when someone is acting immature, when someone's acting like a child and making jokes that are not very adult-like, you can tell them to grow up. Okay, so again, we use raise with animals and people if we're helping them. So you can raise cats, raise dogs, from puppy to dog, raise cats from kitten to cat. Okay, they can grow, animals can grow, people can grow, plants can grow. Or we can grow plants. I'm growing corn in my garden. I'm growing tomatoes. I'm growing whatever I want. Okay? Whereas growing up, we only use with animals and people. And even then, animals, because they don't usually become totally mature emotionally in the way that we think of, it's less common to use grow up with animals. Okay, again, we can, but because it often has this emotional or maturity idea to it, we often don't use it. So we have a few more minutes. Now is a great time. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. Or if you want me to go back to a certain slide, I can help you out there. Someone typing, not typing? Work and job. Good question. So, work and job is quite a difficult one to go over. Often causes problems. And the main idea is that work is more focused on the position, or sorry, on the thing. what you do, whereas job is more focused on the position, okay? So for example, we don't usually say at my job, unless we're talking about the specific details of the company, the specific details of the hours, the pay, what my responsibilities are. Work is a little bit more broad, okay? Meaning that I have to find work that I enjoy. You could say a job, but if I say a job, that means the position and the things I do. If I say work, it means my day-to-day, what I do. You know, we say work with animals as opposed to, you could say I have a job with animals. That would be fine, but it sounds like it's just that specific position, whereas when you say I have work with animals, it's more about it is my profession. It's more of a general thing. We can also use work when we talk about you know, whether you did something well or poorly, because we also use it as a verb. So we can say you did some nice work, my work was sloppy. We do have the phrase good job, but again, a job is more focused on, in this case, when we talk about something specific, good job, bad job, we're talking about something completed, whereas good work or bad work is usually more of the process, okay? So job, if we were to put it really short, job would be more profession. Okay, specific position. Work is more of a broad idea of what we do in that gets us money. Any other questions? Good, glad it helps. Any other questions? You're very welcome. No other questions? All right, I don't see anyone typing, so, oh, maybe? All right, well, while someone's deciding or maybe not deciding, there also is sorry or excuse, as in excuse me. Like when, So this one is even more complicated. It's quite complicated. I'm sorry can have two meanings. It can mean, oops, I bumped into you. Oh, sorry. When something was accidental. I'm sorry can also be that, oh, I feel, you know, some kind of sympathy or empathy. So for example, if I accidentally spill my drink, I might say sorry. If you fail an exam, I could say, oh, I'm sorry. Okay? Whereas excuse me is for anything that is not polite, right? If I want to interrupt, if I want, sorry, excuse me, okay? Excuse me is a little bit more, so there's some dialectal differences between American and British English. Excuse me, again, is very common for when you're about to do something or when you want to say, you know, if someone's blocking you on the metro and you want to go past them, you would say, excuse me, okay? Or if you're trying to get the waitress's attention, excuse me, excuse me. You will hear sorry and you can hear sorry in those situations. And that's why it's becoming, as time goes on, the difference between them is getting smaller and smaller. We're starting to use sorry, especially in America, as excuse me. But really, it's not quite the case. So excuse me should be often for breaking rules of social conduct or breaking politeness rules, whereas sorry is when something kind of bad usually happened. So that's kind of the short answer. No problem. All right, so if that's it, if there are no other questions, then there is a test if you would like to check your understanding, your knowledge of what you learned in this webinar that you can find. So feel free to go through and take that. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Ekaterina, for your questions and for writing. I hope there were other people in here. Yeah, so thank you for coming or for showing up, and I hope you will come back for more webinars in the future. So have a good evening, good day, and hope to see you in the future.